Hello, and welcome to another riveting episode of The Devil's Advocate. I'm your host, Mitchell Drayton, and today we're diving into a world of cinematic what-ifs. Ever watch a movie and wonder what you would do if the script were flipped? Well, now's your chance. Chime in, share your thoughts, and let's unravel those alternate realities together. Don't forget to check out the polls, drop your comments, and hit the notification bell so we can stay in touch. And let's have a fantastic time. Let's go. This one had me thinking. I really had to decide on how to deliver this one because the movie started off at the end, and the end was just the beginning. Now, most people would say, I would do anything for you. But what they don't expect is for someone to say, would you kill for me? This movie happens to be about 3 females and 1 male for the most part. There is a bit of a love triangle, but ultimately everything ends in an abusive relationship, a lot of toxicity, and a shotgun blast to the chest. Now, like I said, we start off at the end, and the end happened to be where the cops come in and they discover that there is a deceased man in the living room. And it just so happens that there were 2 people that handled the weapon that led to his demise, that being of the child Mary and the child's mother, Veronica. Now, Veronica's mother, Mrs. Bailey, the grandmother, was also there in the house with them and did nothing. Now, there's going to be some questions later on, and you're going to have to try and decipher whether or not they are truly the victims, or maybe they're not as innocent as they come off. Now, being that there was a death and the cops did show up because Veronica called them and said, I'd like to let you know that there was a murder, they did start off with Veronica, the mother of Mary, telling her side of the story. Now, for her side of the story, doesn't matter who told it, they all agree that the grandmother, Mrs. Bailey, did all of the raising when it came to Mary, the grandchild. Now, Veronica would depict that her story was that she was the victim through and through all the way to the end and could do nothing else except for find a way to get away from this abusive man. She did allow him into her life multiple times, even though he was unfaithful, even though he was very abusive, not just to her, but to other people, was manipulative, and was downright violent, outright in front of other people, not just her. Now, Veronica stayed, and she wouldn't leave because she was fearful that Mr. Willard, that's his name, would take their son, who did come into the picture later on. Now, if you think about it, there's a term that comes to mind, and I want you to think about your term is that's the reason why she stayed. Now, the one that comes to mind is cognitive dissonance, right? That is where victims may hold conflicting beliefs. They'll love their partner even though they are experiencing abuse from them, leading them to change their thinking, and they will justify staying in this ever-evolving or revolving abusive relationship. Now, like I said, Veronica was saying that she was just abusive. She painted Mr. Willard in a light of doing nothing but abusive things. There were glimmer or glimpse of him being, I guess, somewhat nice. But once again, there was the consensus that Mr. Willard did not care for Mary because Mary was not his daughter. And he had other ideas. He wanted to start his own family. And that led to him, allegedly, raping Veronica and then having their own son together, who they then called Sammy the entire time. Now, like I said, when Veronica told her side of the story while she was in court, she did nothing wrong. And then she was surprised to hear a gunshot go off and then find out that her husband at that then time had passed away from Mary shooting him in the chest. And then she also collaborated that she called the police, and then that was that. Now, the attorneys then asked the grandmother, Mrs. Bailey, to step up because they did not want the child to go to jail and take the hit for what was a bunch of coercion going on with inside that family. So the grandmother took the stand, and her side went very much differently. She painted Veronica as the wild child, saying that, she wanted her once boyfriend, who was abusive. When they did break up, her best friend then had a relationship with him, Mr. Willard, and they had a child together. They then got back together, Mr. Willard and Veronica, and then that's where so there was a bunch of gaps in the stories, but they had their child, their son, Sammy, right? Now, after having that son, I'm guessing that they just weren't doing so good financially, so the grandmother agreed to allow Veronica, the son, Sammy, and Mr. Willard into her home. And through her talking, they all kind of relied on Mr. Willard after he got his trucking gig. So that meant he was gone for maybe days or a week or so on end, driving big trucks, rigs. They needed his checks that he would bring in and whatever money he gave them. And then Veronica, she proclaimed a couple of times that she needed the state assistance that she was getting for the kids. Otherwise, if she tried to leave, he would take his son and she wouldn't be able to survive. So, and if you think about it, she was using the kids as a paycheck versus safeguarding them and their safety. Now, the grandmother also stated that Veronica did not want Mary, this is before they moved in, to be at their house due to the fact that she did not trust Mr. Willard and that she would be safer at the grandmother's house. So once again, that cognitive dissonance, right? She felt as though this was the best thing she could do and was a way that she can keep them all together, at least keep them safe, when there was probably another option. But I'll let you say that out loud or say that inside your own head to yourself. She did try to warn the police, that is the grandmother, and the police said that if there was no actual harm being done to the children, that she needed to take it up with protective services and not them. And then amongst that, she also said that she talked to Veronica, her daughter, about the infidelity, and that if her husband at that point in time had caught her, what does she think that he would do to the both of them, if not all four of them, right? Being the son, Sammy, the daughter, Mary, Veronica, and the grandmother. So you can see how everything is being painted. Veronica saying that he's abusive, that she was being controlled and manipulated, and that she was just an unwilling participant. The grandmother saying that she was a wild child, that she was out drinking. She'd rather stay gone than to take care of Mary. She was taking care of Mary instead. There was a time that the grandmother did say that Veronica made comments about how she didn't really want to have a child and that Mary was messing up everything and they couldn't do everything they wanted to do. So it's not just Willard at this point, but it is also on the, I guess, part of Veronica not wanting to have responsibilities and pawning it all off on the grandmother. Now, they went to court. They said their two sides. And during that time, before, I guess, the judge pulled them back, so it pulled both the attorneys back there and said that no one ever said who pulled the trigger, right? So when Veronica said her piece and grandmother said her piece, no one ever said who pulled the trigger. So the judge said that I'm going to have Mary step up to the stand. Now, there was some time, I guess, that passed because, as you know, not everything happens in one day. They have another day where they come back. And Mary had to go with some foster parents. Now, while the foster parent was taking care of Mary, the foster parent, I guess you can say, slipped up, and she said that, hey, your mother would have really liked to be here, but she's not right now. Mary was confused. She was like, what do you mean? Oh, your mother's been out for a while, but she must have a lot of things going on because she's in parole. And you could tell that Mary got upset because to her, as much as Mary cared for her mother should have cared just as much for her and come to the foster parents' house to see if she's okay, check on her, just kind of do what she believed a mother should do for her, especially after what they allegedly said that she did to the stepfather and her husband. Now, through all the tellings of the stories, even when Mary stepped up to the stand to tell hers at this point, because she was a little upset that her mother didn't come by and see her, they all did agree that he drank a lot. Now, Mr. Willard did drink a lot. He did abuse them. He abused not only the son, but Mary. He, I guess, hit the grandmother so hard that she lost hearing in her left ear. And that she had to hide on multiple occasions to keep from being hit, sometimes missing out on school and going to the church instead. Through not Mary's, but the grandmother's testimony, she also proclaimed that her daughter, Veronica, was looking for pills or a way to poison Mr. Willard so that she could get away from him, and then keep the state money that was coming on so they could survive. Now, even though that happened, the grandmother said that that's not right. So she did kind of tell her, don't do that. Pretty much you're going to get caught, you're going to go to jail, and then you won't be able to take care of your kids. And then who's going to get them is probably going to be the husband. But ultimately, the mother or the grandmother did not help out at that point in time. Now, that was not only the story of Veronica, not just the story of the grandmother, Mrs. Bailey, but Mary got to tell her story. Now, the last part of Mary's story is she was told, she was asked to kill Mr. Willard. So she was asked and she was told that she needed to go and kill Mr. Willard. So they gave her a rifle and they said, go and do it. Now, the reason why this one night it came to a head is because before that happened, Mr. Willard got back from his long trucking, driving the rigs. And when he pulls up, you can tell that the grill and the front part of his truck was mangled. And he did love this truck. And he came in, or his Jeep, and when he came in, he said that I heard about who was in my truck. How did you think I wasn't going to, find out about it? Why would you have another man driving my truck? You've been sleeping on me. This weekend is the weekend that you die, right? And he was drunk, went to another stupor, went into the living room. He passed out. So like I said, they give Mary the gun. They said tonight has to be the night. He has to die. She gets the rifle. She walks into the living room. She pulls the trigger with her eyes closed. Click. Nothing. She goes back into the living room. Mary was like, I don't understand what happened. Veronica pulls a gun out of her hand and says that there's a bullet in there. Go back and do it again. So the first one, misfire. So reluctantly, Mary goes back into the living room, puts the rifle back up to Mr. Willard's chest while he's in a drunken stupor. Click. Nothing happens. Now, Mary's very distraught, but she goes back into the living room, and Veronica's like, what happened this time? And Mary, of course, doesn't handle guns. She's like 12 or 13 at this point. Says she doesn't know. She shrugs her shoulders. And Veronica proclaims, the safety's on. Go back and do it again. All right, she goes back for the third time. This time, she puts the gun once again dead center of Mr. Willard's chest. Bang. Mr. Willard does not die right away, though. It just so happens that, I guess the caliber of bullet, probably because how close she was, it did not kill him instantly. But by that time, the cops do show up, and Veronica says, on the phone, she said it was her. But when the cops show up, she says it was Mary that pulled the trigger. And then you can see how that's where it started, but that's also kind of where it ended. But when it comes down to it, you have to ask yourself the question. We got the grandmother's side, we got Veronica's side, we got Mary's side. But there's a fourth side that will never be told. It will be forever missing because Mr. Willard did not make it, of course. He got to the hospital, but they said that he was dead after. Now, was the killing justified? You may ask yourself, well, I'm not sure. Some may say, heck yeah, it was. The guy was a monster. He abused them all. But remember what I said. There is always that fourth side of the story that will never be told. Who knows if those three, had collusion and they came up to say we have to paint him in the darkest light possible. And even so, if you watch the movie will kind of paint him in that light. But there's no telling if that's true because we only have 3 sides to a 4-sided story. Well, we can say 5 sides because there's a truth, right? And they're telling their side of the truth. So that's the first question. Was the killing justified? Now, should Mary have faced jail time? That's to be seen. Veronica did. She got leniency, only 10 years for her part in telling her daughter to kill her husband. 10 years. But should Mary have faced some time? How about the grandmother, Mrs. Bailey? Should she have faced some time? She was complicit. She was there. She didn't tell her granddaughter to do it, but she also did not tell her not to do it. So should she face jail time or should she be let off the hook? I mean, obviously she was, but the show's called The Devil's Advocate. So, find out. And is it possible that Willard was just driven crazy by the fact that her spouse was sleeping around on him? It may be that some of the times that she faced some of the beatings that she did was out of passion. So as some people say, crime of passion, where he just lost it, he blacked out because he loved her so much. Once again, you're never going to hear that side of the story because it will be forever missing and it's taken with him to the grave. So there's a couple of things that you need to ask your co-workers, your friends, your families. Was the killing justified? Because we don't know his side of the story. Should Mary, should the grandmother face time with their part in this crime? And is it possible that Willard wasn't as bad as they painted him out to be? Well, I'm glad you listened. I'm glad you clicked on the podcast and you stuck around this long. But that's what I got for you today. Would you kill for me? That wraps up this episode of The Devil's Advocate. I'm your host, Mitchell Drayton. Thanks for diving into the What If with me. Now it's your turn. Drop your thoughts, hit the polls, leave a comment, and keep the conversation going, people. Until next time, stay curious and stay questioning.